streaming. It looks like we're streaming. All right, let's go tell the world about it. Streaming game dev, probably gonna do Octopus Arms paste. Wow, that isn't even close to the right link. Let's see if I can grab the part of the string I need to grab, and then we'll manually edit together the correct link. And then we'll come over here. Some kind of update on Windows or OBS has made it so that OBS now puts a little recording icon in the corner of my screen, like in the taskbar, which I don't remember that from before, but it's nice to see. So for those of you who aren't big space nerds or who are watching this later, you may not realize, but today is the day when they're going to try and fail to launch some astronauts into space. And the problem is that every single tweet or article or anything that's about that is like, American, Americans, America, America. And then, of course, they're all sucking Musk's toes. And wow, it's just repulsive. Yeah, I don't care for it. It's kind of a shame. It would be quite a feat if it wasn't all about trying to suck our own dick, which is difficult. And as any 13-year-old can tell you, you can put out your back that way. Anyway, we're not going to be doing our octopus arms that way. We're going to be building them a different way. I kind of held off on doing it this way because it is a little bit obnoxious. It's not quite as automated. But I can't figure out any way to do it that is nice. I can't figure out any way to make it so that the suckers behave when they are doing all of their suckering in shader. I just can't figure out a way to do that. So we're not going to do it in shader. We're going to use bones. So, the reason that I brought up the space case stuff isn't just to whine. There's nothing else on my Twitter feed. So I went to check and I'll post this thing where I'm streaming. And it was just like an endless stream of people talking about the space. I don't want to call it a race. The space diversion. That space. The new thing I was just talking about. The space launch. So there wasn't anything else available to talk about. So yeah. All right, so what I've just done is I've stretched them to be fat, and we're also going to remodel them some because this is not quite right. We may want to remodel them from scratch. Yeah. So I didn't have anything else on my Twitch and a Twitter feed, and that's why it's on my mind. I'm like, I don't mind a little bit of people talking about space is one of my favorite things, right? But once you start to really aggressively get billionaires involved and talk about how it is important for Americans to do American space, and American space is obviously the part of space that's just above America, and that's the only part of space that the ISS passes through, in case you were wondering. So, if you're very young, all of that was a lie. I was making fun of them. So what we're going to do is we're going to remodel. I'm going to go ahead and just take a look at some references over here. The problem is I need to find some references from Living Octopuses. All the dead ones that you're about to cook, their little suckery bits are not very lively. They're not responding correctly. So the live octopus tentacles are very chaotic. They aren't this. This is like super nice. It's like, because it's an array. I just took one thing over and over and over and repeated it. And most of the references you're going to find online if you search are 3D meshes or pencil drawings or things like that. And those are like overly simplified. They don't really give you the the kind of chaotic feel. So the question is, of course, whether or not you want to go for that chaotic feel, or whether you would prefer to try and do something that's a little bit more mechanical. I think we're going to go for the chaotic feel a little bit. The basic process is we're going to model some kind of suckery thing, and then we're just basically going to go with it. So the difficulty here is merging all of these suckers into a central column, because if there are seams, they'll be very, very obvious. But I think I'm trying to think about how to make it happen. I think if we just model the back half of the column, then we can just stitch the front half together out of suckers. That's what I'm going to try. So delete you. Bye. And we don't need you either. Boom. Bye. I think we still have an empty object here. No, I guess it didn't stay empty. That's fine. So what we're going to do is we're going to just put in a cylinder, something like this, right? And then we're going to just, thank you, just bring it up a little bit, and then we're going to move this guy up, and maybe 10 meters. Obviously 10 meters is not what it's going to be in the game world. We'll be scaling this however we need to scale it. And we're just going to go ahead and shrink. No, that's wrong. So if we wanted to sculpt this set, what we would do is we would try and determine the curve that we would like to see on our octopus tentacle. We're not going to do anything complex. We just need a guiding curve. The other thing we're going to need to do is delete half of this, actually. I'm going to sneeze. I'm going to mute you. Ooh, sudden sneeze. Sorry about that. We're going to need to delete these caps. They're in the way. I'm probably going to have to mute you a couple more times because I can feel that the sneezes are not getting further away. They're getting closer. The sneezes are coming from inside the house. All right. Obviously, we're going to want to add in a material here, specifically so that we can get the rear culling working. Yeah, that's good. That's fine. So, yeah, just checking on the other screen for a second, just in case I missed something obvious. All right, so we're going to need suckers, and just looking at the octopus tentacle sucker stuff, when the octopi are alive, I think I was told that octopi is wrong, and that it's actually octopuses now. I don't remember anymore. But either way, when it's alive, they're substantially more protruding. They don't hold nearly as tightly to the tentacle as I was modeling before. So what we're going to put in is another cylinder here, and then we're going to just... Why aren't you rotating? Rotate. X 90. Some idiot turned numlock off. All right, so if we then just move this into vaguely the right spot, what we can do is we can try and form it into a mesh. We should probably punch it out and make it its own mesh for now, just for the sake of ease of construction here. These suckers are pretty basic, so we're not going to have to do too much work to try and get them to look like suckers. We're just going to put them together real easy and not think about it too much. It's going to be pretty dark, so the biggest thing we're going to have to want from these suckers is simply that they are going to be something that reflect the light properly, because our headlamp is going to be like 90% of what catches these. So we're not going to have to worry too much about exactly how they look at all times. but there will be some side shots and there will be some close-ups. So those are what we're worried about. And we may end up making like custom meshes for those later. Stream has started, allergies hit. That's how it works, right? Anyway, the back of these is substantially less. So it's like something like this. And I just want more pictures. Give me more pictures. Yeah, they're basically little volcano-y things. So that's basically the shape they've got. But the problem, of course, is that they are not just volcanoes. They are merged into the surface of the tentacle, which is this thing here in the back. And in order for that to happen, they need to be able to just get flung in however it works best. Okay, so this isn't a sun. There it is. Now it's a sun. They need to get put together how it works best, but they all need to be stitched together at the end. Stitching things together is not too bad in Blender. It's not too bad, especially if you don't really care about the topology that you end up with. So we're not going to have to worry about it too much. But on the other side, I am in fact going to have to turn suckers. Why is it sucker? It's not supposed to be sucker. It's arm. Gonna have to turn that back face culling off again, because I can't actually, well, can I just switch modes? I guess we'll do it like this for now. And we're just gonna like staple a bunch of these squiddy tentacle things, but we need to make sure that the squiddy tentacle things are already unwrapped and properly painted. So to do that, I actually want to add one more cut. Just mark these as smooth. We're going to end up marking the whole thing as smooth, and we're not going to be doing the auto smoothing. It's all going to be bio. But one of the things we're going to have to keep in mind is that not all of these are going to have the same shape. They're going to be distorted in different ways, but they all have to be painted. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a cut where we want the edge of the octopus to, or the edge of the sucker to be. So we're just going to mark that. No, not mark sharp. That's the wrong argument. I guess I don't have it. Mark seam. There we are. And so then what we're going to do is we're just going to tell it to unwrap along this here. So we just mark that seam. And then I guess we actually don't want to mark that whole seam. I lied. We want to mark this seam just up to there. Mark seam. And then we should be able to just tell it to unwrap. And as you see over here in the corner, what we've got is a perfect circle for the sucker. And then we've got this brocade sort of set up for the actual tendril. That's not right. And the problem is it's not right because we've got a face that we don't need. So we're going to go ahead and try that again. There we are. Obviously, the sucker should be substantially larger. It doesn't. We'll have to redo this later in terms of moving things around. But as long as they all have the same UV layout, then moving things around will be very, very easy. It's only when we have to unwrap them all in like sequence that it becomes a real issue. The other thing we're going to need to do, we could paint these, and I think that's going to be necessary if we want to have a really tightly controlled result. So we're going to pop on over into vertex paint mode here. And basically, we're just going to be painting the parts that are skin and the parts that are sucker. And we're going to leave white for the suckers, and we're going to paint everything else black. This is a very simple way to do it. And then in the actual shader, we'll just probably use the red channel to determine whether something is part of the red skin or part of the white sucker. Why can't that one work? I seem to be not able to click. Well, maybe it is clicked and I just can't tell. That's fine. And we're going to come right up to here with the jet black. And then we're probably going to switch to a gray for the edge. And that should be fine. Okay, I guess that's just light, a lighting glitch. That's fine. But we do want to make sure that it is as black as it can be, because we don't want any accidental suckers in the back. That doesn't make any sense. And then for this part, we'll tighten up our radius and do a little bit of edge painting here. Hold on, I think I can turn on X mirroring. And I can turn on Y mirroring. Is Y up and down, or is it left and right? Okay. Okay, that's it. Good. As you can see, we accidentally painted quite a bit of the back, so we're going to just go ahead and clean this up, which we'll do by really lowering the radius and then hitting the edges that seem a little suspect now. Yeah, it's fine. The shininess is really not helping me. You'd think that they would make it so that it wasn't so shiny when you're in the mode specifically intended to help you paint, but they didn't. We are in flat color mode, viewport shading. I'm not sure why it is so aggressively shiny. That's okay. We'll live with it. We're just cleaning up that part there. So you can see we've got a little bit of damage on the inner portion of this shape. You see right here, these striations. The striations are happening because we've got such a long, thin face. So in order to clean those striations up, we just put in a cut, and it should work out. See? We still have some. It's not perfect. But it should be okay. So that should be our basic sucker. And we should be able to just pop that in a few dozen times. So let's switch out of vertex paint mode into object mode. Let's go ahead and save this separately, just in case we need it later. And then we will simply start to fill up this tentacle. Now, the basic idea is that these things, they come in two strips, but the strips are super organic and uneven, and that's what we're going to be doing here. We're going to just be creating some organic, uneven shapes, and it's basically, it's okay if they are a little bit wider than the rear face. That should be fine. So we're just kind of having fun with some of these shapes, trying to figure out what will feel fun. And obviously we'll adjust their exact layout once we are a little bit more, further in. Obviously, as we go towards the top, they're going to get smaller. Now, some tentacles even have things like an errant center point, the two lines will separate and there'll be a sucker between them. I don't think we're going to go that far. We're just going to create some uneven edges here for ourselves. Now, the only thing I didn't think about is I put the center line, or the pivot point on these. I put it at the back instead of at the front. So that means that all of these are now uneven. They've all been moved backwards and forwards randomly due to me scaling them, which is something we're going to have to deal with. But that's, I mean, it should be bearable. Now that should be enough to see whether or not this approach is going to work. So let's go ahead and try and see whether or not we can actually do the thing that we need to do, which is stitch it all together. So as you can see from the side, they're not exactly lined up, which is fine. I think that's probably okay. But they don't want to be quite that far back. We'll put them like here. And now the idea is we should be able to just, pow, now they're all in the same model. And from here, in theory, we should be able to merge them all together. So the inner area where we have all of the overlaps here, that's not going to be so important. We're going to want to make sure there's no issues with like actual gaps, but it's really the outer area here where we're going to need to make sure that the edges are properly configured. So we need to merge these into the rear face. And the two ways of doing that, there are probably more than two ways, but the ways that we have to think about doing that, I guess we're going to want to pull the faces forward. Just grab these suckers. If we pull them forward by not that one and not that one, let's go ahead and just undo there. Yeah, so if we go over here and we say to the 3D cursor and then we say scale by 0, you can see how we've pulled them all forward, and that should allow us to stitch them to the back nice and easy. There are two ways to do this. One is to stitch them into the existing back plane, which we've built out of this system here, and the other way is to create a new back plane by extruding them around. I think that our best bet for now is probably to get the inner area kind of cogged together first, and then we will see how the outside looks. So basically, we don't mind these inner overlaps. They're going to be fine. So we'll just stitch it together like that, see? And that's going to be just fine. We can adjust them later if we need to, but I don't know if we will need to. I mean, this is stuff the player won't be able to see. It's going to be dark. Okay, so this... There we are. When you got three meshes coming together, it's a little bit confusing sometimes. So I don't know if there's an easier way to do this. There probably is. I know that I can do a unify. Should I try a unify? You know what? Let's go ahead and try a unify before I try anything else here. I'm hitting undo a lot in hopes that it'll get all the way back. Am I done with undos? No more undos? Undo history. What? Okay, so apparently I can't undo them anymore. Brilliant, I know. That's a shame. I mean, we can go ahead and punch them out manually. It's just kind of annoying. I guess it doesn't have to... Well, let's punch them all out manually. Oh, just punch. Okay, so hold on. If I were to select everything and hit P by loose parts. Brilliant. All right. So if we take this bad boy and we put in a mirror auto modifier, jabop like that. What we want is not actually a mirror modifier, but we're going to use a mirror modifier to get a little bit closer to what we want. And what we actually want is to have this forward face be almost parallel to 0. So to do that, we're going to turn on smooth editing. I guess the best bet here would be to hide. Well, that didn't work. There we are. And that way we won't affect the back end. There we go. And you can see that the problem here is that at the top it doesn't work. So what we really need to do is to select this front face and then do a 3D cursor, scale Y, and then just this. And that should be uniform. Yeah. Then we can unhide, come back out, and we can start to see whether or not, well, that's interesting, it's not the same size. Was I hallucinating when I put together these pieces? Because these are not... Huh. So the other thing we were trying to do here is we're just testing to see whether Booleans... it may be that there was an illusion at some point, and I was mistaken on where the edges of this model were. That's not the median point. Okay, so when I extracted them all, they apparently all got their centers reset. I'm presuming that what I did is when I moved them or scaled them or something, at some point they errored. I got them shifted off course or something. It's not that big a deal, but it is annoying. And it's possible that I just screwed it up when I was building them. But now that they all have this center point at 0, 0, 0, it is quite a challenge. So... yeah, we're not going to worry too much about it. We're probably going to have to redo it anyway. But the biggest question for me is how the heck do you use Boolean operators? Because we have this issue where we need to Boolean operate like 50 things together. I know there is a library you can get, like a custom library, where you can just use a quick Boolean operator thing, but unfortunately I don't have that library because the guy that built it blew me off. So we're not going to use it. We're going to instead try and think about how to do this without that. And I think I might be able to just use dragging here. The only thing I want to make sure of is that we don't accidentally drag this guy. So that one's called sucker. Yeah, so we don't have to worry about that. So these all got renamed because I extracted them from the same mesh. So that's why it's fine. So here's what we've got. We've got this Boolean operator. We should be able to tell it to duplicate. Is this a duplicate button? No, that's just a Boolean. I think there is a way to duplicate these. If I can't duplicate them, this is going to be super annoying. Oh, there's the add driver button. Add to quick favorites. I added the expanded to the quick favorites. No, I wanted to add the Boolean modifier to the quick favorites. Can't you just add the suckers? Well, the thing is I want the suckers to be part of the same mesh as well. They need to merge with each other as well as with the final product. Let's go ahead and try it. Let's go ahead and put all the suckers into one mesh and see how that works as a result. Let's go ahead and save this for a second, just in case, you know. So if I select all these, deselect this guy, don't need him, deselect him, and then just put them all into the same then when we do the merge, it shouldn't be too hard to see how it's going to turn out. We've got some issues with overlaps here and there, which I don't like. So what we may have to do is just a little bit of cleanup. It looks like one of the things that didn't stick was my attempts to make all of these go to the median line, which is not that big a deal. We'll move them ourselves. No. There we go. All right, so if we look at this, I can't remember which of these is the actual one we want. It's not that one. Union, I think. Yeah, that looks like it. So if we hit apply here, boom, and come in, that actually did work out substantially better than I thought it would. The Rellan says that he spilled cola on his mouse pad. If it makes you feel any better, I cleaned my carpets 2 days ago, and yesterday I spilled a liter of iced tea. So it is one of those things, you know, one of those days. So most of these turned out pretty good. We got some damage here and there, but that's not too shabby. What I might do is bulk up the tentacle. Yeah, so let's go ahead and undo that. If we just scale it up on the x-axis a little bit, or how about everything but the z-axis a little bit, and then apply. Yeah, so here's what we get, and it is very similar to what we had before. Of course, the low poly nature of the tentacle leaves a lot to be desired, so we're going to just undo one more time here, and then come in here and pump it up. Yeah, so this is the basic idea. Let's see whether or not that works. Obviously, we only did half of the tentacle. We're testing. We'll just move this bad boy over, and then we will bind it. We'll go with automatic weights today. And then if we go into pose mode, you can't see jack shit, but if you change the view type, then it becomes extremely annoying because then you can't click on it later. Ugh, whatever. We don't actually have a very good bone setup. I can't click on it now. What happened to this? Why did this stop working? I just want to click on a bone. Let's see what happens if we just delete this object and start over with a different armature. All right, so this is Deerfuck. Oh, that's right. I have two objects here. There we are. So this is our new object, and I still can't select the bones. What happened? Why? Blender 2.8. Can't select bones in pose mode. Try to disable in front. Fucking seriously? Are you fucking serious? That's fucking stupid. Okay, so the problem is that if you can see the bones, you're not allowed to click on them. Oh my god, Blender. Can you please get your shit together? Anyway, let's see how this works. Yeah, so this is with the default mesh, the default weights, which are a little bit too sharp. It would be nice if I had the ability... I never actually checked. Let's see. If I were to come over here and delete this and then rebind it to the bones. Can I adjust the automatic weights? I can get X mirrors and keeping the transforms. Okay, so there's no way for me to change how sharp that fall off is, unfortunately. That's not great, but it's also not terrible either. So we're going to go ahead and select the skeleton, go into pose mode here. And we're just trying to get a sense for how this looks. I think if we go into here, select this, select this, select this, then go into weight paint. What I really want to do is just soften all of the weights. And unfortunately for me, that's not really an issue. I should be able to select a soften brush here. No? Mix? Is mix the same as soften? And I don't really know. If I... So... No, it's not even close. Can I just hit shift? I can just hit shift, okay. That's not really what I want either, though. It's not really doing much, is it? Alright, so we're going to go ahead and leave that for later. The basic idea here is that our bones are intended to drive our... There should be a brush that smooths weights, the Monk of Time says. Yeah, I agree. I mean, at this point, it would actually be easier for me to paint them rather than auto-weight them, which is pretty sad. Which is probably what I'll end up doing, because this is obviously not quite right. In the N menu or the T menu? Oh, you're saying there is one. Well, I mean, there wasn't a brush. Unfortunately, Blender is really, really bad about switching modes. I wish it was a little bit easier. Well, over here, this is the N menu. And here's the list of brushes. And there's no option to pick a blend brush. We got add, darken, multiply, subtract. Mix does not, in fact, mix. It just paints. See? So you might be able to tell me that there is such a brush, but I don't friggin' see it. Oh, there's blur. Okay. What? I have to switch them on a submenu of a submenu? What's with that? That's dumb. Doesn't actually seem to blur much, though, does it? I don't see any blurring. Oh, maybe I need to select a bone first, idiot. No, it's not doing anything here. That is not blurring shit. On the left, he says. Oh, okay. I didn't realize that was a thing. So clearly I've selected the blur brush, and as you can see, it is doing literally nothing. Ouch! Oh, I forgot to check my mic volume. Can everybody hear me okay? Because Windows keeps turning my mic volume way down. I tried to fix it, and if you can hear me, then it worked. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't appear that the blur brush works. Okay. Apparently, if I select it from this drop-down menu, it refuses to actually switch. So, what the fuck is... Blender? I'm clicking on something, I would like to use this tool that you've put on the side that you won't let me click on. What a brilliant decision on your part. Okay, so blur doesn't work, but I can select things like blend or average. Okay, so I guess the problem is I tried to select, now I can select blur. Oh my god, Blender, you are the worst. So here's average, and as you can see, it actually does average things out. We need to make sure auto normalize is on. And Monk of Time says my mic is fine. That would be a wonderful first. So we're just going to turn this down, and then we'll just blow, and then we'll just move along a little bit. Blow. Whoop, whoop, whoop. We want to try and keep that fairly red core. Whoop, whoop. And we're just testing some weight preferences here. So we'll go back over to this area. We're just going to see whether or not the deformation doesn't blow. Because I did it using a Boolean operator, so the deformation might just be awful. Go into pose mode. And just try and see. Okay, yeah, that's a little bit more like what I want. Just for testing purposes, it seems fine. Yeah, so you can see that we've got some blips, some blurbles. That should be okay. That I'm not too concerned about. If it ends up being a serious issue, we'll come back in and fix it. So the biggest problem I've got with this right now is that this is not how it actually works on an octopus, but I don't know if I can do anything about that, because how it actually works on an octopus is they squash outwards. They have some mass preservation. So when you fold your arm like this, for example, this here isn't going to just become smaller. It's going to become wider. I don't really know of any way to make that happen, aside from having deformation bones attached to every single joint, which seems like it would be a lot of work, so we're not going to do it. We're just going to kind of rely on the fact that no one will be looking too closely at this in order to get it to, to be, viable. The other thing we're going to do is we are going to just grab the outer edges and turn on smooth editing, and we're just going to shrink them down a little bit so that that's more like it. Now, the only reason we had those wide outer edges was specifically to make sure that we didn't have any pokies. So now that we don't have any pokies, we can bring those edges back in. And you can see that's a little bit closer to what you might think of when you're trying to think of something octopusy. So if we take a look here, we can sort of just bend it into an octopusy shape just for testing purposes and see whether or not it feels good. Yeah, so what we've got is, at this phase, we have a very strongly jointed model because our bones are so segmented. You can see how we've got creases coming in. We're probably going to have to go in and use substantially denser bone setup for the main tentacle. If we're working with lesser tentacles, it's probably fine, but for this bad boy, we're going to need to use at least twice that many bones, and we're also going to need individual sucker bones for the suckers that we want to animate individually, which is going to be all of the ones that are not currently grabbing the player, plus a few that are. It's going to become obvious. We're basically building a tentacle specifically to grab the player, and that means that the tentacle is going to have a specific nook that it grabs the player into. So if we were to switch into pose mode again here, an example might be if the player was here, we would be coming in like this and wrapping around the player. And obviously we need a lot more density. We probably also need to have like a player-sized object in here to wrap around. But since we're rescaling the mesh in Unity, that might not be very accurate. So you see how we sort of get this to to happen. Pretty basic, right? And so when it's like that, that's nowhere near tight enough. We're definitely going to need twice as many bones. But when it's like that, the only thing the player is going to really be able to make heads or tails of, their head's going to be like here. So the only thing I'm really going to be able to see are the suckers on the topmost layer, the edges of the suckers on the topmost layer, and whatever suckers are, playing around behind them, because not all of the tentacle will be involved in wrapping. It'll have like some little bits coming off like that. So if we were to double, maybe even triple the density of the bones here, it would probably be fine. But we're not ready to do that. We're going to have to go ahead and create ourselves a version of this that actually goes up and has the entire setup that we want. So to do that, we're just going to start over. So we're going to go ahead and delete you and add in another cylinder. And it might sound like starting over is like, oh my God, starting over again. It's not that big a deal. We were working on the technique, so we're not too concerned about how long it's going to take, because it's not really going to take very long. Once again, we're going to select this front face and pull it back. Nope. There we go. Let's get this party started. All right, so this is once again the suckers, and we're just going to want to put them in places that feel, relatively decent. It's okay if we overlap with the sides. We'll be pulling the sides out and then pushing them back in, just like we did before. And now that I know that these are being pulled back towards their origin point, I can overlap them a little bit more aggressively and get a lot denser of a result. That didn't work. That was weird. The only other thing I'm worried about is I should probably rotate half of these, but we'll do that before we merge it. The reason I would rotate half of them is that the seam is on one of the sides. It's on the inside, see? But over here it's on the outside. So we just want to rotate them so they're all on the inside. It's not a big deal. I think we can push this a little bit further. I don't think we pushed it far enough. Let's get a really grotesque creature with aggressively squiddy tentacles. So, as we were doing before, we're just duplicating and placing. There are probably faster ways to do this, but I don't happen to know any that wouldn't take just as long, in terms of tweaking parameters and stuff. Like I could do arrays, but then I'd have to move the pieces and tilt everything and try and get them to scale correctly. It's not really any faster than doing it this way. So we're going to do it this way. the nice thing about this is that since the tentacles are all on the same plane, they're all facing the camera, we don't have to worry too much about what's going to happen with shifting them and rotating them and stuff, because they're not going to do that. Not in the mesh. They're going to do that with the bones. We're coming up towards the end here, which is largely just going to be a matter of smaller and smaller tentacle squiggly bits until we reach the tip. Now we're going to see a lot of deformation on these, and that's going to be an issue, but we're going to have to deal with it. We're going to have to find a way to either reduce the deformation, which we might do via shape keys, or to just pose it so that the characters, the player won't actually see any of the particularly badly deformed bits. Since the player has control of the camera, that might be a little bit difficult, but we could always take control away if we absolutely have to. It is basically a cutscene after all. So as we come up to the end, we have to decide what we're going to do in terms of having the tip, because the tip of these things is like a little squiggly bit, which doesn't really have the density that these things are going to deliver. For now, we're going to leave it unmodeled, and we'll come back in and model it later as its own detail and bring it together. For now, however, we want to select all of these bad boys. Let's hide most of the things so that we don't have to worry about them. In fact, we'll just hide this guy too, and then we'll just select them all. Pa-boom. And then we'll just move them all together. Oh, let's join. No? Not Control J? We'll have nothing selected. Is that the problem? There we go. So now that they're all together, we can simply go and 3D cursor it and then select all these bad boys. And oh, that didn't work. Try again. There we go. And because we are very, very stupid, I'm going to blame you. We forgot to rotate, so we're going to go ahead and do that now. And that's just a matter of selecting everything on the left side, which I guess we can do. Well, it's a little bit risky to do it like this, but we'll do it like this anyway. There we are. We'll just shablowy, and then select the ones we missed. Shablowy. Come over here around individual origins, and then we can just rotate 180, and there we have it. So that should work. Yeah. Now we'll unhide some stuff. Here is our squid tentacle, and you can see that it's much too narrow to actually contain the elements it has to contain. So we're going to just select here, turn on the smooth expansion, scale it up on everything but the z-axis. No, scale it up only on the x-axis. There we are. Whoa, that didn't work. There we are. So if we pull these out far enough that all of our meshes are on the inside, that looks good. Then when we do the merge, it should work out. Let's try it. Is that? I thought I saw one that was, yeah, see this guy? A little too much. I could like adjust things even more, but I think it's probably easier if we just pull that particular errant piece of crap in. I guess I'll just do it a couple more times. It's not that big a deal. Hello? There we are. I thought I really expanded this enough, but I guess I could have expanded it a little bit further, because these are not entirely within the bounds of the expanded tentacle. Come on. Come on, seriously? Fucking select it. Are you an idiot? Select it. Thank you. And then we'll just move this up a little bit. It looks like when we cut this, we did not cut it enough, anywhere near enough up at the top. So we're just going to add in some more density here. The reason we need more density near the top is simply because all of the meshes at the top are smaller, but they have the same poly count. So we need a lot more density. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. And then as we go down, we don't need so much. That's fine. All right. So, could be better. I'm kind of thinking maybe we should scale it up on the y-axis. That's probably a little bit better. And then we'll go ahead and do that merging. So we just create ourselves a Boolean operator and then select the squiddy bits and we'll do a union. Pow! And then we'll hit apply. So if we then move the squiddy bits off to the side, you can see that they all remain nice and tidy right here. Now it's time to bring that tentacle back in line. Just select this and this. Burp into the mic a little bit. Why not? There we are. So it's going to deform the top a little bit more than the bottom because the scaling can't be modified by what it needs to be modified. So that's why the top looks a little bit less nice, a little bit less pretty, but that's okay. We can always adjust it by having a different, manual scaling for the top elements if we decide that's what we need. So here you can see the final result, which is very, very suckery. If we then just say to smooth shade everything, perfect. I forgot something. It turns out that we need to undo what I just did because, do you know why? It's going to be, there we are, union please. No, that's difference. That's union. It's going to be necessary that this be black. Because we chose to make black everything that's not a sucker. And so we have to continue that policy. So let's paint it all black. Like an old emo song. There we go. I really wish Tab would switch between object mode and whatever it was, and not between edit mode and whatever it was. I wonder if that's a setting I can change. Anyway, move the sucker off to the side again. There we have it. Once again, we're going to just shrink those edges back in. And what we're going to do, I think, is hide... Is there any good cut point? I guess right there is probably best. So we're going to go ahead and hide here. And that's going to have to include... I guess that's probably going to be okay. So then what we're going to do is select these edges and bring them in. Excuse me. Okay, let's try that again. And basically, we want the shape to be just large enough that it's not grabbing too much of the sucker. So like that. And then what we'll do is we'll unhide, and we'll manually select the points above that, which I think the easiest way to do is just to hide that. Like that. And then we can bring these in the same amount, but with a smaller... God damn it, I can't see anything. I guess I'll move the 3D cursor up a little bit just so I can see what the heck's going on. Okay, that is apparently not the y-axis. There we are. Got a little bit of damage here and there. It's not that big a deal. We can either leave it, call it like scar damage, or we can just manually smooth it off in sculpting mode. We have a smooth brush here somewhere. Just use a small radius and patow, just a pow, just a boom, shapow. More or less, that's fine. So just call that a tentacle. Okay, so that should be all we need to do, except that we didn't unwrap the actual tentacle arm on the back there. I'm not sure that we have to. I don't think we're actually using UV space for anything. So we'll leave it like that for now, and then we'll see how it looks in Unity. And if we need to unwrap it again, we will. It'll be a little annoying because, you know, there's all sorts of things that already have been unwrapped, but we can always select just the stuff that hasn't been unwrapped, at least in theory. So now we are going to need to take a look at this bone setup. We're going to put it in front. Now, we can't leave it in front because that doesn't actually work. It breaks pose mode, which, okay. But once we're in edit mode, we can quickly subdivide to double the number of points. We're also going to need to make some of these tentacles have active bones for suckering. And that's what we're going to do right now. We're just going to put in a couple of suckering bones. And yeah, it's going to be just a matter of bringing a bone up to, you know, in front of the tentacle there and then extruding it forward. And it might be something that is a little bit annoying to do. So we'll find out. But if we do those three, they're all bound to the same bone. So we can do that like that. And we can always just repeat the process a couple of times for other bones. But for now, we're going to try binding it. Automatic weighting shouldn't be too bad this time. Let's try it. So, now that we've got it bound, let's see whether or not it properly bends. Oh, you know what I forgot to do? No, that's not right. That's not right. There it is. Smooth shading. Here we are. Here we've got pose mode, and we should be able to get away with a lot more now that we've got double the amount of bones. Let's just go ahead and select like a wide swath of bones. There we are. And we can just, yeah, look at that. That's not too shabby, is it? What do you think? Not too bad? Not too bad. Starting to look pretty good, folks. Not too bad. Now, obviously, I left this bone alone specifically because I wanted it to be one of those bones that we can manually tweak because it's got some attached elements. But you can see those attached bones aren't actually moving. That's no good. Why aren't these bones moving? They should be attached, right? I attached them to the wrong bone. Isn't that brilliant? So the problem here is that these individual bones actually need to be bound to this bone, which is bone 06. And they're probably bound to bone 07, bone 05. Unfortunately, I can't change what they're bound to outside of edit mode. So we're going to go into edit mode. There they are. So here we're going to change this to bone 06. Now here's the problem. That doesn't actually change it. One of these lucky bones was just changed. But Blender doesn't do multi-editing because it hates you and it wants to see you dead. All right, so back into pose mode. There we go. So now when we move the bone, they should move with the bone rather than without the bone. The only issue is I think that one of them moved prematurely. That's fine. We can always move it around and do whatever we want here. So the idea is that in theory we should be able to basically make these suckers do whatever we want using these bones. See? So just a little bit of manual labor to make these bones do whatever we want them to do at the precise animation moment that we want them to do their thing. But we're seeing a lot of problems with things like clip through. So that is going to be something we're going to have to keep an eye on. Did I attach them to the wrong bone? I did. For fuck's sake, Craig. Bone 16, not bone 6. Okay. Not a big deal. We can bind them again. That's what happens when you subdivide. They aren't even vaguely in order anymore, but that's fine. There we are. All right, so if we take a look at this, if we were to leave these modes and just take a look at how it looks, I think that doesn't look bad at all. Monk of Time says it looks pretty decent. I have to agree. It's a little bit expensive, but I'm pretty chuffed. As a first test, I'm going to call this OK. Let's go ahead and name it. We'll name it Tentacle. And we're going to obviously need to revert the armature here because we don't want it to be posed like that. So, boom, there we go. And we're going to want to rename some of these bones. He likes the twisting at the end. Yeah, the twisting at the end is critical. All of the tentacles do that. They have a little coily bit at the end. So I'm going to rename some of these bones. These bones specifically we're going to call sucker bones. Just so that we can manually select them by name when we have to. All right, so we're going to save that, go over into Unity, and take a look at how that feels in the game world. Super Donut says, how goes the tentacle? It is the day of the tentacle, my friend. You are just in time for us to see how it looks. Unfortunately, I forgot to combine elements, so we have a little bit of an issue here and there. That's interesting. Clearly what happened here is that we didn't actually get to keep it. Let's go back in here and just quickly do a little teeny edit. Would you please give me control? Thank you. Where we just merge some of those verts together so they're not such a pain in the ass. And then we can just go and put the octopus into the scene. Octopus. Oh, it's really getting hot in here because my computer is kind of running flat out. Doing all this streaming is something it doesn't really do naturally, so it's struggling a little bit. But it's okay. It will work. So this is what it is at 100% scale, which is obviously incorrect. It needs to be something like 10 scale. 5 scale is fine. So this is what it looks like without any shader work at all. But let's go ahead and put some shaders into it. And then see how that feels. So over here in the materials, we should have fauna, yes, octopus, poof. So the only problem is that our octopus setting isn't actually set up to do the job it needs to do at the moment. The way that it's currently set up is it doesn't understand where the sucker is or anything like that. So it's very, very primitive. Kind of looks like a sofa. Let's just adjust some of these values. It looks like I am using UV mapping, or maybe not. Those streaks are really pretty awful. It's fine. We'll deal with it later. This is just a placeholder for the moment. For now, however, we're going to just radically reduce the tessellation. Put it at 1. And we're going to reduce the displacement tiling. Is that what we need to display? No, it's the noise tiling. There it is. Beep, beep, beep. There we are. That's a little better. All right, so we're going to turn off that big fake light and just swim on over and take a look at it in person. Super Donut says, did I model it? Yeah, I certainly did. You can go back and watch the first part of the stream if you want to see how that worked. It was Booleans. I used Booleans. So it should be fine. After we take a look at it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to model it into something that is roughly the right shape for, a grip or an attack posture. And we'll just make sure that we're not looking, missing something very, very obvious and basic. I thought it was right here. Where are you? Oh, it is right here. It's just on the other side of the chain. There it is. It's that huge shape right there. So currently we don't have proper... there's a couple of things missing, and we're going to have to address all of them. But the basic shape... it's not too shabby. I think I buy it. However, what is with these suckers? See how all the suckers have like a nozzle? That's not right. So it looks like at some point I screwed up the mesh and sucked the nozzles. See how we got this thing here? We got this area sucked way back, and I'm not sure when I did that. It must have been near the beginning, but it's wrong. It's really wrong. We can't use it with this kind of... they're all megaphones. Yeah. I mean, they weren't supposed to be, but apparently I screwed it up at some point. They're supposed to be shaped like that. But since I've Boolean added it together, it's pretty much damaged beyond usability at this point. The only way to salvage it would be to pave over it. So I guess what I've got to do is manually cut all of these inner elements out, which is absolutely not what I wanted to do. My guess is that this is what screwed it up. When I did the Boolean merge, I somehow see how I've got these elements kind of painted into the skin. We may just have to completely redo it, which I don't really want to do. How much undo have I got? Just that much? No, I don't have anywhere near enough. It's all pose mode shit. Yes, I understand, Monk of Time. They're not suckers. So I can either redo it from scratch, or I can attempt to repair it. I guess repairing it is the best bet, but it's got so much extra crap. Alright, well, let's go ahead and... I wish that there was a way to do this. Oh, there is. Yeah, that's not too shitty. Do it like this. See, if we have just these free-floating elements, that would be fine. I guess the best way to do it is to hide? No, I can't hide. Hide here. Yeah, that's probably going to be the best way to handle this. Hide that too. So, just, can I select similar here? Alright, so that should select all of the center points. At which point I can press plus and then H, and now they're all gone. And then I want to be able to select all of the megaphone parts, this thing here. But I don't believe that select will allow me to do a multi-select. I think... Oh, that's nothing. It doesn't work at all. I think it's trying to select something similar to the one that's highlighted, not to the loop. Oh, wait, that worked. Oh, not perfect, but pretty close. Hide. So there are a few pieces that didn't quite work, but this is pretty good. Blender repair, speed run. Yeah, we're going to try it. I mean, this is something where it's... I would consider this pretty catastrophic, and clearly we've got some damage that's not going to ever be fixed. I'm tempted to just redo it, but one thing's for sure, that did not work. So we're going to undo that. We're just going to go ahead and select all of these manually because they are all nice, clean face loops. At least like 99% of them are. So we're just going to run through and manually select them all. They are all nice and clean because they are all from the same object. So when they were booleaned together, they didn't boolean with each other. Which, some good, some bad, in terms of what that means. All right, break. Continue. It looks like one of these guys is either damaged already or got some extra selection going on that I didn't expect. We may have to do some last-minute repair at the very end. That should be fine. Shoop-a-doop, shdoop-boop, shoop, shoop, shoo-buddy-boop, shaboop, shoop, shoop, shoo-buddy-boop. David Goder says, is it tentacles? It is indeed tentacles. We're fixing up our tentacles because they were incorrect. They were wrong. And it didn't work out very well. So now what we can do is we should be able to... Okay, so that's all connected in. What I'd really like to do is select just these inner surfaces. I just don't know if that's going to work. Oh, I know what I was doing. I was going to select them as loops. There we are. It's the whole reason I did the hiding, so I could select these as loops. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. There we are. It's a little bit harder than it needs to be. Ooh, that one didn't work out at all. Oh, maybe that one wasn't damaged. Cool. We'll fix it later if it is. So basically what I'm trying to do is just select all of these loops. And unfortunately that is a tedious process, which normally I wouldn't do on camera because it is one of the most boring things you can do to watch someone select something over and over and over for the entirety of a stream. Super Donut says, is it going to be part of a squid or coming out of the ground? Well, both. It's going to be part of a squid, but you're never going to be able to see the squid clearly enough, so it's not going to be important for the mesh to actually be part of the squid. You're not going to have a clear view. So we're going to model every part that you're going to see separately. And if there are any parts where you might see the seams, we'll just add clouds of dust. So It should work fine. Old movie monster trick. Now that we've gotten this far, let's go ahead and test and make sure that everything's working. What we do is hit plus like this, and then we say delete faces. And then just to make sure, we unhide, and you can see what's happened is catastrophic damage. That is what I sort of expected. The problem is that we can't delete just faces unless we unhide everything else. And if we unhide everything else, you can see how we've got a whole bunch of stuff selected. So that should be okay unless all that stuff is faces. And unfortunately for us, it is faces. No, it's not. It's not faces. Never mind. So because none of those are faces, we should be able to unhide and then select delete faces, and it won't damage anything. That is the theory. Let's find out. I really wish your selection was a little bit smarter, Blender. That's okay. Ooh, that's damaged. Pretty sure that one's going to require some cleanup at the end. Come on. Now, all of this is necessary because I used a Boolean merge, which isn't really known for conserving good topology. So the result is I can't actually select these faces I want to select as anything useful. Unfortunately, they are they're all chopped up, but they don't count as loops anymore. So I've got to do it this roundabout way that doesn't make any sense. It probably would have been just as fast to redo it from scratch, but I'd already done that twice, so get you a little bit of something different in your diet. Emergency repairs. Got a lot of damaged ones. That's not great. Well, it's fine. Yeah, Blender selection tools are not very good. They did add a couple of features that are good. For example, you can now hold Control and then click, and Blender will attempt to select everything between your current selection and the selection that you've just tried to click on. That's hugely helpful, but it's still pretty basic. It's pretty primitive. If I had a better tool to do pattern selection, I would be able to do things like select face loops similar to the face loop I've selected. And it shouldn't be hard. I should be able to say things like select based on face loops that have the same UV topology, like the same UV mapping. There's no reason why I should have to walk through doing this manual selection a million times. That's just Blender being a little bit opaque. I also love how Blender always prefers to select whatever is incorrect. I don't think I've ever had it select the right thing when I've been, a near miss. It's always got to be pixel perfect, or it's going to select like a vertical line when you're clearly trying to click on the much more limited tiny line. It should really select whatever line you're closest to the middle on or something similar, rather than just trying to randomly pick a line that's near your cursor. Still better than nothing. So we're going to hit plus, and then we're going to hit unhide, and then we're going to hit delete faces. We can't because the middles are all faces. Okay, so we're not going to do that. We're just going to hit delete only faces then. Only edges and faces. There it is. Boom. So once we do that, we can... Why did it delete those faces? Those aren't part of the equation. Oh, I guess it's because those edges count as part of it. What a pain. I wish there was like a a better option here, but there is not. We're going to have to delete only faces and leave a whole bunch of really dumb lines. That's so stupid. Hopefully it won't get in our way when we're trying to do edge loop merging here. So that doesn't seem too bad. Unfortunately, I require a lot of it, and I can't do it bulk. So take a quick little look at a different rendering mode, just to make sure I'm not doing anything terribly stupid. Do 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 do. Yes. Okay, so you can see that what we've got here is not all of these faces got selected properly, so there's a lot of leftover crap. We'll just go ahead and delete those faces. Kaplow. And that one too. There we are. Is that right? That is right. That one's just really, really aggressive. That's fine. Every tentacle, every sucker is unique and special in its own way. This would be so much easier if Blender had better operations. It's okay, it's okay. It's not that bad. I've done far more tedious stuff. For example, almost all the video games I play are more tedious than this because I like tedious video games. I'm actually shocked at how hot it is in my apartment. This is the first day that the temperature has broken 80 inside. In fact, I had my heater on 2 days ago. That's how unexpected this is. So I'll just bear with it, but next time I'm going to have to be a little more prepared. Open some windows and stuff like that. I could install the air conditioning, I guess, but I'm really lazy. Okay, so this is not selecting properly. There we are. David Goder says, I started a game and then I was like, let's check Twitch, but he didn't get any notifications. I can't help you with whether Twitch notifies you or not, but you can certainly play a game and watch me stream. I am not the most riveting person that you've got to pay attention to 24/7. You are welcome to pay attention to me part-time. There's no scheduled breaks in your part-time viewing of my content or medical benefits, but it is scheduled whenever you want it to be, because there's always those past broadcasts. All right, so we're almost done. We're getting there. We're only half done. Okay. I am tempted to take the easy way out, but we've come this far. Oh, that was interesting. Another one of these damaged bad boys. Just delete me some stuff. Wait, can I just go plus minus? I can not. Great, never mind. So one of the things about selecting lines in Blender is that you can just alt-click again and it will select the opposite line, but it's so persnickety that sometimes that doesn't really work. And it also doesn't work if you're doing shift-clicking, because it doesn't automatically deselect the first line correctly. At least it didn't last time I checked. So it's not ideal. It's not working today. There we are. So maybe I lied. Maybe I'm hallucinating. But because it doesn't work very well with adding multiple lines together, it's a little bit useless for this. The Relin says, what do you prefer for source control? Well, I mean, it depends on whether you're working on a team. The answer is always going to be whatever the team uses. I use Tortoise SVN because it's something that's easy to set up and easy to control. But I don't have a preference. If you're working solo, it doesn't really matter what you use. So Tortoise SVN is easy to set up and reliable enough for my needs. So therefore, if you're doing solo, that's what I use. Oh, also, it's really old. I just keep using it because I'm used to it. I don't need to have any fancy source control stuff. I just need to have something that understands when to keep track of changes and when to keep a backup. But obviously, if your workforce is more demanding, then you might use something else. All right, I figured out how to get these things selected now. I know I lied, but I'm getting there. My click rate has gone up dramatically because I've realized what Blender wants from me, and that is it wants me to click on a face, not on a line. It doesn't want me to select the edge. It wants me to select the face near the edge. And then it will just select whatever line is closest to where I click on the face. And that is a huge improvement in my understanding of how Blender selection tools work. Although obviously it's not perfect yet. Come on. Come on, seriously? Jeez. One of the other things I wish is that you could give loops priority. When you hit Alt-click, you're trying to select a loop. Therefore, if there are 3 possible things you might be clicking on, maybe the one that's a loop should be the obvious answer. The Relin says that he's seen fewer tentacles in weird Japanese games. Yeah, well, I can't help what what sort of porn you've played, but this is supposed to be the first boss. So basically, like 90% of the first, that's not even really a boss, 90% of the first thing that kicks your ass is this tentacle, which is why I've been so persnickety and careful about it. All right, so that's a little bit better. Let's go ahead and move the armature around a little bit so that we can get ourselves something that feels a little bit more natural. Here you can see what we've got for our setup. I don't see Sucker 1 or Sucker 3. Did I not rename them properly? I might have accidentally not named them properly. Let's go ahead and just check. Because I see the structure for Sucker 1 and Sucker 3, but I don't see the names. Sucker 2. Okay. I named them incorrectly. I don't know how I missed it, but I did. So we're going to name them again. David Gooder likes using Control R. I actually don't remember what that does. My finger memory kind of remembers all that stuff, but I don't remember it myself very much. So what we've got here is we've got a whole bunch of bones selected. And you can see that as we move them, it only moves one of the bones. We don't get that nice curling that we got in Blender. That's because Unity is not built very well. So what we can do is we can simply move them like this to try and get them to work. We don't want to select that core bone though. It's just a little bit too much. So there we are. And you can see that this way we can get ourselves some coiling. And we can also go ahead and give ourselves some spin. Yeah, and maybe just a little bit of that. All right, so let's move that up so we'll be able to find it. Whoopa. And let's go ahead and take a look. The Relon says someday he'll write a piece of software that uses Control S to delete everything with no undo. Yeah, that's actually one of my biggest complaints about ZBrush. Not that Control S deletes everything, but Control S doesn't actually save the thing you're working on. ZBrush has a concept of a document, and the document doesn't do anything. The document is completely worthless. You need to save the tool, and that's not the same function as saving the file. It's really bonkers. So this is what it looks like when it is at this size and coiled around. Now obviously this is the wrong size, but let's go ahead and play around with it a little bit. Let's see what sort of joy we can muster. So if we were to draw that in tighter, no, that's clearly not working. All right, let's do it here. There we are. That gives us a really tight set of curls. And we're just testing it at this point. We're not trying to we're not trying to make it look good yet. Also, it appears that we are a little bit too big, so we'll shrink this down. And then what we'll do is we'll just grab the last couple of bones and we'll make them do their own thing because that's the tip and it kind of does its own thing. Yeah, Control Z. When you do Control Z in Blender, it undoes some of your last operation and randomly 3 or 4 of your previous operations. Like it'll undo things like, oh, you changed your color like 10 minutes ago? Well, now your color is changed wrong. Or you changed your brush? Well, now your brush is unchanged. It's like reverted, even though what you reverted was a pixel edit or, a vertex edit. It's like, what are you doing, Blender? All right, so that is not looking too shabby. The actual painting of the skin needs work. Here you can see what we've got is a world position marbling, which means that as the tentacle wraps around, the marbling does not wrap. We need to fix that. Also, the tentacle is still way too large. We're going to need to bring it down even more. Still, it's not immediately terrible. It's just a little bit strange. Let's go ahead and bring it down a little more, and then we'll just tweak the material so that it is more correct. And we'll move this so that we can see the little dangly bit a little bit more fun. There we go. So now let's go ahead and tweak the material. So here is our octopus arm. The thing is, we've got a front and a dorsal element, and we haven't actually got those. We need to paint them so that they exist. And what that is it's changing some of the paint job we've got on this object. So right now, if we go into vertex paint mode, you can see that it's all black in the back and all white in the front. We're going to have to change it so that the back is not black. It needs to be a different setup. So to do that, we're going to want to change it to some other color. we'll have to pick anything we want, green, and make it that color instead. So there we are, green. And basically, why isn't this working? The fuck? Oh. There we are. And basically, this is the dorsal element. So it's the part where the skin is red. So first we'll just blanket fill the back, and then we will just paint down the edge on the side. It doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, it might be a little better if it's not perfect, but we don't want it to be terrible. We don't want it to be splotchy. The Relin says he's only ever used Max. Well, that's not a bad choice. I think, personally, I think Max is getting a little bit old. See, I hit Control-Z and it undid my brush change again. I don't feel it's aging as well as it should. And that's the reason I don't use Max. But if you are not particularly of that opinion, that's fine. I don't hold it against you in any way. Now we've got this really, really obvious bone setup that won't go away. That's because we marked it as in front. We're going to go ahead and mark it as go away. There we are. And then we'll go back into vertex paint mode and just take a look. Make sure that we didn't do any serious damage to anything. I don't think so. All right, so now we're going to go back into here and open up this shader editor. Now we've got a couple of things that we want to keep track of here. David Goder says, what about Maya? I mean, if you are using Maya or using Max and you're happy, stick to it. The most important thing that a piece of editing software can do, a piece of content creation software can do, is be easy to use for you. And Blender, unfortunately, still isn't quite there for me. I mean, I'm more used to it now than I've been used to anything else. If I tried to go back to Maya now, I'd probably have to learn it basically from scratch. But I don't feel that if you are currently using Maya and you're not having any problems with it, switching to Blender is probably just going to be annoying. It's up to you, however, obviously. There are some new kinds of software out there that do fundamentally different things. Those are worth looking into. Things like DaVinci. Is it called DaVinci? I have a feeling I'm naming the wrong Ninja Turtle. Yeah, because there's a Ninja Turtle named DaVinci. You know the one I'm talking about, the one that's really great for architecture. That one's pretty cool. I haven't used it to its fullest. And there's also things like material, things to help you paint materials and stuff like that, and they're all worth looking into. And the Relin is talking about, I believe he's talking about Max. So we are using world position here. We really don't want to be. We want to use local position. Oh, no, wait. We don't want to use local. Do we want to use local? See, the problem is I believe local position is after the tentacle is bent. We're going to find out. So here's our vertex position, and we're just going to go ahead and replace one with the other. I believe that that's the only place that we have. There's a world normal. Oh, it looks like it's the only place we've got anything. So, all right. So if we take a close look, let's turn on the debug light. There we are. All right. So that actually doesn't look too bad in terms of where the cells are now. The cells used to be stretched in a funny way. Now they curl as the object curls. It's not too bad. Let's go ahead and start adding in some of the additional elements. So up here, we've got this front tint and dorsal tint. We're going to need another color, which we are going to call sucker tint. And we're going to default that to white. And basically, we're just going to create another lerp. Chippedow. And the alpha for this is going to be anything but green, so red probably. And we'll just move this a little bit so it's not quite so overlapped. Oh, actually, it's in the wrong spot. So there we are. Oh, wait, dorsalness I think uses red. Hold on. Where are we writing dorsalness? Why didn't I put a big fat comment on it? So here's the get. Do I have a... Can I pop over to a... Oh, there it is. Oh, it is using green. Good. That's fine. So as long as that's not using red. If it's using red, then it's no good. But it's not. It's using green. All right, so there we go. Now we've got the suckers working. We have a lot of options for how we want to set the smoothness and stuff. So you can see I can change the smoothness and metallicness to give it a different sort of feeling. The problem is that it doesn't really react very well to your light source, which we'll see in a minute here. But I think I want the suckers to be substantially more glossy. So we're going to go ahead and set them up with a glossiness of 1. All right, let's start to clean this up a little bit. It's getting a little bit, just everything's in the same spot. It's a little bit hard to really, normally if you were not shitting this up so badly, what you would do is you would simply make sure that that your setup here was commented and modularized, which we might do. We might go back and do that. But since I've just been trying to get it to work, I haven't done that very well. So brilliant, right? Well, we'll give it a shot here. And then this is just going to be between that and 1, and the alpha is going to be red. Down here, you can see we're grabbing red for this vertex color test, where we are multiplying a displacement depth by a redness value. Now, that's actually not what we want to do. We want to multiply it by like a 1 minus redness value. Because we don't want the tentacles to have veins. And that's the vein thing, so I'm probably going to want to do that here too. Oh, we can't lerp. All right. Put in a multiply. All right, so we'll clear that out. And let's take a look at how it looks. David Gooder says, one of the things I liked about 2.7 was that the size, it was 30 megabits or something. Oh, yeah. It used to be that you could get Blender in very, very small install sizes. It's still quite small compared to something like Unity or Unreal. Not only does Unreal itself weigh a whole lot, but you have to install a video game shop in order to get it. And that also weighs a lot. So it's like, Okay, so it looks like the positioning is, in fact, post rotation. So that means, post movement by bones. So that means that we're going to have to replace the cellular setup with a UV-based setup. It's not going to be too painful. We'll do that in a second here. And then this is what we see when we look in here. You can see that they look like they're made out of silver. That's the shininess, but it's a malfunction. That's not how it should look. It should be okay. This tentacle is still way, way too big. Because it has to be able to grip you, and we have to be able to see you. So it's like, it needs to be small enough that the size of the tentacle arms isn't so big that it dwarfs your entire, skeletal structure. Still, let's go change out the cellular element with something that's a little bit more our speed. So here's the vertex position. We're going to replace that with a UV position, but in order to do that, we're going to need to make sure that our UV setup is correct. So to test our UV setup, or to refine it, we're just going to go back over here into the tentacle mesh. Here we are, back in Blender. And if we go into edit mode here, what we can see is the setup for our tentacles. Now, if you see something specific, this grid here, this is the actual tentacle itself. And this is obviously the thing that needs to have the most weight. It needs to be the biggest and the most impressive. So what we're going to do is we're going to select, this is not one thing. This is like 50 identical things. We're just going to select them all and shrink them and put them over here somewhere. It doesn't really matter if they overlap much, but what we're going to need to do then is grab this guy and scale him up on just one axis here. And then we'll just move that into roughly the right spot. And just put it over on one side for now, like this. And unless I miss my guess, that's going to work fine. There we are. So let's go ahead and save that, and then we'll come back over into Unity. And we'll use the UV coordinates. Only problem with this is that the cellular automata stuff is going to break. It's not cellular automata, it's just cellular print. It's going to break at the edges of the tentacles, which is not ideal, but we'll live with it for now. So to do that, we simply use the UV. Here it is. And we're just going to move that to here. And these folks can go away. Hooray. There we are. And that's going to allow us displacement tiling. That's just a property. Okay, that's fine. And then here is a... Oh, wait, this isn't what I wanted to change. Undo. Okay, the texture coordinates go on the other one. This is all displacement stuff. Where's our cellular stuff? Here it is, up here. I almost deleted the wrong thing. Oh, no, wait, what is? Hello, I want to have control back. For fuck's sake, Unity has decided to re-import everything. Brilliant. So we don't need to break this into components or any of this stuff anymore. We're just going to pump it straight into the UV. We still do need it to be absolute valued because the Voronoi noise setup doesn't handle negative values. I don't believe we actually have any, but there's no reason not to, so we'll do it. Now the only issue is I think that it needs to be... Yeah, we need to radically increase the scale here. The cellular scale is just way, way wrong at the moment because it's engineered for a different size creature, right? So we're just going to grab this cellular scale and which direction is it supposed to go? I guess up. Let's bring it up to like 200. There we are. So now you can see it wraps around our tentacle, which is what we want. It's going to be a little bit wonky. Oh, I left the debug light on. Let's turn the debug light off. It's going to be a little bit wonky at the edges of the suckers. We're going to have to... there are a couple of things we can do about that. One is we can play it up when it's dorsal. Like multiply it by the green channel. And that will be a big help. There you are. You look tiny at this distance. All right, so there we go. We definitely see some bunching in the final arm here. We're going to need to be a little bit careful about that. I think that's going to be a matter of deciding how we want to animate it rather than re-rigging it. But as you can see, we now have like these really dense spots on the sides of the suckers. See that? Also, it looks like our dorsal is backwards because the suckers are darker and they're supposed to be lighter. So let's check out, see what sort of setup we've got there. So if we look at this material, our dorsal tint is supposed to be darker, and it's obviously in the wrong spot. So if we take a look here, what we've got is the dorsalness value, which is green. 1 minus, there's the problem. So we'll just recompile that, and it should flip which side is which. Yeah, so there, now you can see it's dark on the back and light in the front. And we'll polish those colors a little bit. The other thing is our cellular... You know what? Now that it's not dark, it doesn't look so bad. I kind of like how that looks. Yeah, for now that should be fine. We're going to polish it a little bit more here and there, but the shine is too much. You can see just how much shimmer we've got around the edge. I don't want that. I'm a little bit lost as to why it has this shimmer. I mean, obviously smoothness is a factor, but I don't have like what do they call it? I don't have rim lighting turned on or anything, so I'm not sure why it's so shiny. I mean, I guess I could add 0 to the transmission and see whether or not that works. No, so it just changed it to forward only, so I don't want that. Let's go ahead, even though I set it to 0. Recompile, and that, so it's very, very shiny. I just don't know. Is it one of these? I just flipped some switches on the other screen. See whether or not that clears up this nonsense. Ooh, nope, didn't do anything. Which makes sense because it's forward-only stuff. I just don't see why it is so shiny. Me adding to the shininess or the smoothness shouldn't make it like have a halo. There's no halo. Maybe I should turn off GI. Maybe this is a GI problem. You gonna come back at any point? No, that's not it. Per vertex light, ambient light. Let's turn off ambient light. Am I hallucinating, or is it taking longer to recompile every time I recompile it? No, it didn't help at all. Damn. So the only option here is to not use smoothness, to leave the smoothness very close to 0. But that's... I want it to be... I mean, I can turn off specific lights and see whether or not that fixes stuff. In 15 or 20 minutes, once it's done compiling... Let me take a look here. I am on itch. I've subscribed to a number of people, and some of them do not speak English, so I get new game releases in languages I do not understand, which is fine. It's always charming. So I just got one in Vietnamese. That's a language, right? I actually don't know. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's called Vietnamese. So what I'm going to try and do here is tell the tentacle to ignore specific lights. I have to actually put it on a layer, don't I? Like, oh, that would be annoying. Let's go ahead and just turn the smoothness off. I don't feel like dealing with this shit. So turning the smoothness off is a little bit, I mean, it's not great, but I don't know why the smoothness is creating a halo. Like, you can see it on my butt. You see that halo on my butt? That's because the smoothness exists. And I just don't know why the rendering seems to think that smoothness means that there should be edge lighting. There's no edge lighting in this scene. Well, whatever. We'll have to figure it out someday, but for now, we'll deal with it like this. So now the only thing that has smoothness is these squiddy bits. And clearly that's too smooth. So we're going to go ahead and bring that down a little bit. So we're going to have skin smoothness. Well, that's not how you spell smoothness. That's skin smoothness. And then we're going to have sucker smoothness. Ah, woo! Yeah, see, I want it to be smooth enough that I don't get... I don't want the sky reflecting off of it, which should only happen if it's set to be metal, and it's not, but whatever. So I don't want the sky reflecting off of it, but I do want it to be glistening. Obviously, that's too white. Let's bring this down a little bit. I don't want it to feel like they are made out of the sun. Oh, it's not starting to feel too shabby. It's starting to feel okay. The key here is that it's going to be in motion the whole time. So that's something to remember as we're building it. It's never going to be hanging around like this. If it was going to be hanging around like this, I'd have to take a lot more care. For now, let's de-kink this little edge bit. It's not working out. So, that didn't work. So if we were to select, I believe it's these guys. Can we go over there? There we are. And then okay, so that's one too few bones. Let's select one more bone here. That's better. And really what we're going to do is move them forward. This is not built to be bent backwards because it's not really supposed to be. And we're going to just twist it like that. And then we'll take this whole octopus thing. We're almost done for the day, so if you have any questions, now is the time to ask. Let's unwrap it a little bit. I think that we are a little bit too wrapped up in ourselves. There we are. Pull that down a little. Oh, no, not like that. My bad. So you can see that we've got a little bit of flab going on here. So we'll just grab a little bit more bonage. Yeah, like that. Once again, not what I intended. That's okay. All right. Now let's get a feel for how the size feels, because that's not exactly how you're going to be wrapped up, but it should be pretty close. Let's turn off the debug light. That's a little bit too bright. Yeah, it's clearly a global map thing, which is a little bit strange because I'm pretty sure I turned that off. Still, it's something I can deal with later. I learned a lot more about lighting in the time since I created this scene and now, so, you know, there's a lot of stuff I'll do to fix it up if I want. So, as you can see, it's not really that big of a tentacle in this view. We might have to extend it. It might be a little too short. That's okay. I know how to extend it. It's not that big a deal. Even if I have to recreate it from scratch, that's like a 15-minute operation. No biggie. Putting aside whether or not it's the right length, it does feel like it can wrap you up, doesn't it? I think it feels just about the right scale for this kind of thing. Yeah. And if it were moving and hunting you down, I think it would be pretty scary. But it's going to have to be longer. It's got to be way longer, like twice this length. No biggie. I'll do that off screen someday. Thank you very much for your time, everybody. I will see you around. And I'll be back on Wednesday and next week.